All right. Happy Sabbath, everybody, and greetings, Facebook, Antigua and Barbuda, and whoever watching me worldwide, and whenever you guys watching me. Now, there is something I would like to make very clearly. Now, we have been conditioned to believe that the gospel of Jesus Christ is about preaching and preaching and preaching. People think to worship Jesus is about church, 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 church. No, there's nothing wrong to go to church. There's nothing wrong to call a solemn assembly. And there is nothing wrong to go inside a building and worship. But people need to understand that the church is not the building. That I am the church, you are the church, we are the church. When we all come together to worship, we are known as the church. And that is known as church, not the building. The building has nothing to do with glorifying God, but our hearts, our body and mind, for which we are the temple. For those of you who didn't know now, please, you need to get that registered into your mind that the church is not the building. Now, the point I would like to make is we think what's going to get us into heaven is when I put on our nice clothes and, we find a building and we worship and we call that church. That is not it. It is more than just that. Okay? It is more than just walking around with fancy clothes. It is more than just an expensive piece of frock. It is more than just expensive jacket and tie and suit. It is more than just that. You understand me? The gospel is how you treat one another. It's how you take care of one another. It's how you deal with one another. Now, I have discovered a lot of things lately by studying the Bible and by reading the spirit of prophecy with the Bible, and it helps me to understand a lot. And I encourage every Seventh-day Adventist to open the spirit of prophecy and study the spirit of prophecy with the Bible. It will blow your minds away. The writings of the spirit of prophecy will help you to understand a lot of things in deeper meaning, in depth. There are many things that I get to understand. It is because of the spirit of prophecy. I mean, I've read them before, but I never really understood the meaning of them. And it's when I decide to start search the spirit of prophecy, I get to understand there are much more meanings to what we just read on a daily basis inside the Bible. Now, I'm going to share something with you to help you guys understand something. Now, let's look at this stuff here. Now, I don't know the book that I got it from. If you look way at the bottom, it says manuscript 7 1908 MTC page 56.1 and MTC page 56.4. I don't know what MTC stands for, but let's look at this here. It says here, the ministers who hover over the churches are accomplishing little good for church members unless they encourage and teach the people to do practical missionary work. She's speaking to all of us. Now, it says here, every minister should now feel that there is a greater work for him to do than to repeat again and again the same sermons to the people. I have been instructed to refer our people to the 58th chapter of Isaiah. Read this chapter carefully and understand the kind of ministry that will bring life into the churches. The work of the gospel is to be carried by means of our liberality as well as by our labors. Now, what is the meaning of liberality? Let's look at the meaning of liberality. It says here, the property of being liberal, generosity, charity, a gift of gratuity, impartiality, candor. So 4 meanings. So basically, liberality in that sense means to be generous, to have charity in your heart, to have love in your heart. Okay, now let's go back to the reading. Now it says here, the work of the gospel is to be carried by means of our liberality. So basically by means of generosity, by our kindness and how we treat people. We have to be kind and loving to people. That's basically what the 58th chapter is about in Isaiah chapter 58. Now let's finish read this and then we can go to Isaiah chapter 58 to see what it says plainly here. Now let's read this over. It says here, the work of the gospel is to be carried by means of our liberality as well as by our labors. When you meet suffering souls who need help, give it to them. When you find those who are hungry, feed them. In doing this, you will be working in lines of Christ's ministry. it is not the duty of conference officers. No, she's referring to the general conference leaders. Pay attention. It is not the duty of conference officers to lay restraining hands on the work being done in our cities. So therefore, they're not supposed to stop the work that should be done. And that work is to go out there and minister to people with our liberality by being kind and generous. Now let's see what she says here. Alright, it says here, it is not the duty of conference officers to lay restraining hands on the work being done in our cities by the strange forbiddings that have been exercised in some places. Satan has been seeking to hedge up the way of the truth. The people need no encouragement to inactivity. So we're not supposed to encourage inactivity. So we're supposed to be active, be co-laborers with Christ when it comes to being liberal, when it comes to being charitable, when it comes to helping people, feeding people, and supporting people. You understand? That is what she's saying here. Now, the reading is more now, but I only could have screenshot this small passage. But you can go and search it, and you can read it more for yourself. Now, when she says no, she's when she talk about the 58th chapter, she says here in the second part, well, in the second line here, no, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, the ninth line. She says, I have been instructed to refer our people to the 58th chapter of Isaiah. Now, let us go to the 58th chapter of Isaiah to understand what she was referring to. Now, we're here in Isaiah chapter 58. You can read the whole thing, but for this sake, I selected the verses from 3 to 11. It says here, Wherefore have we fasted, say they, and thou seest not? Wherefore have we afflicted our soul, and thou takest no knowledge? Behold, in the day of your fast ye find pleasure, and exact all your labors. Behold, ye fast for strife and debate, and to smite with the fist of wickedness. Ye shall not fast as ye do this day, to make your voice to be heard on high. So what God is saying here, you fast for debate, to smite with the fist, to fight, to argue, to kill, to do wickedness to people. So God is saying here, you're not going to fast like that anymore. No, this is the fast that God wants His church, we as His children, to fast. Alright? Verse 5. Is it such a fast that I have chosen, a day for a man to afflict his soul? Is it to bow down his head as a bulrush, and to spread sackcloth and ashes under him? Wilt thou call this a fast, and an acceptable day to the Lord? Is it not this the fast that I have chosen, to loose the bands of wickedness, to do the heavy burdens, and to let the oppressed go free, that ye break every yoke? Is it not to deal thy bread to the hungry? That is what God is saying, no? And this whole thing is referring to the 7-day Sabbath as well. Not just the Sabbath alone, we're supposed to do this type of fasting. But when it comes to the Sabbath, this is what is expected of us to be done on God's holy 7-day Sabbath. You can read the whole chapter of Isaiah 58 to get a better understanding. Alright? Now let's go back to verse 7. Is it not to deal thy bread to the hungry, and that thou bring the poor that are cast out of thy house, out to thy house, when thou seest the naked, that thou cover him, and that thou hide not thyself from thine own flesh? Then shall thy light break forth as the morning, and thine health shall spring forth speedily, and thy righteousness shall go before thee. The glory of the Lord shall be thy reward. Then shalt thou call, and the Lord shall answer. Thou shalt cry, and he shall say, Here I am. If thou take away from the midst of thee the yoke, the putting forth of the finger, and speaking vanity, and if thou draw out thy soul to the hungry, and satisfy the afflicted soul, then shall thy light rise in obscurity, and thy darkness be as the noonday. And the Lord shall guide thee continually, and satisfy thy soul in drought, and make fat thy bones, and thou shalt be like a watered garden. and like a spring of water whose waters faileth not. Now, when you read that passage in Isaiah 58, what it is telling you is that the fast that God has chosen for his people is not to boot up one another as a bulrush, is not to boot one another, to destroy one another, to fight, curse, and argue one another, to do wickedness to one another, but it is to relieve pain and suffering. When you meet someone who's hungry, you feed them. When you meet someone who nah no way for sleep, you give them a place for sleep, then I know way for live. You have it, you offer them a place to live. When you see someone thirsty, you give them to drink. Someone nah no money, you have it, whatever resource that you have that they don't have and in need of, and you have it, you provide it for them. That is basically what the gospel is also about. The gospel is not just about going to church and praise God. It's about our actions, how we deal with one another on a daily basis. Now, a lot of people think what's going to bring them salvation is religion. What's going to bring you salvation quicker and more than religion is the love of Jesus Christ. Love that you have for your fellow brothers, love that you have for the strangers, love that you have for humanity. That is the love that is going to get us to the kingdom of heaven. Now, most people just put on their clothes, then just go church, just for see them and go church, just to be seen among the company of God's chosen people, thinking that just because they are there, they will automatically enter the kingdom of heaven. No, you have to be found working. You have to do the work that Christ did. Always remember this passage here, brothers and sisters. Let me read this over. This is very important. The ministers who hover over the churches are accomplishing later good for church members unless they encourage and teach the people to do practical missionary work. So what she's saying is that you have to encourage the people. As a minister, as a leader of God's church, you have to encourage the congregation to do missionary work. What is missionary work? The same work that Christ did. You go out and look for those who are hungry, you feed them. Those who don't have nowhere for live, you build house for them. That is what Christ did. That is the work that we should be doing as Christians. You have to go out there and reach out to people. And she says in that writing, that is what makes the church bring people to the church. If love is not there, if liberality is not there among you, nobody now go come to church again. And that's what church people feel to understand. A lot of pastors and preachers and church leaders, they want the church to be full, packed with people. But the very work that Christ did, why the multitude followed that after him and never wanted to leave his side. Them they don't want to do it in a church. You know what Christ did? He showed love to the people. When he met those who were hungry, he feed them. And he never scorned them. When he met people who were in need of his grace and mercy and healing, he moved towards them in great compassion, and his heart melted, and he touched them and prayed for them and healed them. That is love, and that's what I have been now for today as Christian people. And that's why nobody want to come sit down in a church next to us because I don't love nobody. And when I tell people these things, they say that, oh, I am against the church, I am bringing God's church. And the same people condemning me, accusing me, say that I'm bringing God's church. Then I have no love in them. If you go to them right now and ask them for a piece of bread, even though they have them, they go tell you, no come back to my place. Then go slam them down in your face. And they fail to understand that type of character. It is not that type of character that is going to bring people in God's church. As a matter of fact, that type of character does the opposite. It repels people away from the house of God. When you know how to love and be compassionate and be kind to people, then the church will go full up of people. Let's continue read. This is very interesting. Alright, it says here, every minister should now feel that there is a greater work for him to do than to repeat again and again the same sermons to the people. Now, this is what most church that I know has been doing. They will repeat the same sermon over and over again. They draw people to the church. After a while, the people then go away from them. You know why? Because all they are hearing is the same preaching and preaching, the same teaching and teaching, the same sermon and sermon and sermon and sermon again and again and again and again, until the people and then one day then become so hungry that then just hear the same sermon over and over again, and not even a plate of food or pass give them, the people then get discouraged and walk away. It is going to happen. Because if all you do is preach and preach and preach and preach and preach and preach and teach and teach and teach and teach and teach and teach and bring back the same psalm, thou shalt not fornicate, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not lie, thou shalt not do this, thou shalt not be an anti-man, thou shalt not do this, thou shalt not do that. That is what I see they do 24/7, straight all year round. But at the same time, there are people who are committing those same sins because of need. Instead of preaching the same sermon to condemn the sins that they are doing over and over again, there's a part in the Bible that says love covers a multitude of sin. Love basically equals charity, and charity is the same as being liberal. Liberality. So instead of condemning the same sins over and over again, you ever sit down and consider maybe it's because they are in need of life necessities. That's why they are being forced to go and commit those sins that you hate them for and condemn and scorn them for. You see the hypocrisy here? A lot of people thief. Some of them thief and not because they love thief. Because guess what? They're not have no resource. They are in need. And then work and then no money. A lot of women out there, they go and become prostitutes, some fornicate, some commit adultery. It is not because they really want to do it, because they have need and then have nothing and nobody for help them. So instead of condemning them and calling them a whore all the time, instead of pointing them to the scriptures and show them how much of a sinner that they are, because that is what we do straight non-stop, why don't you find out the root cause of why they are living that way and address the root cause? Majority of the time is because they don't have money or they don't have food. So I'm just breaking it down to help you understand what this is saying here. It says here, let's read it again. Every minister should not feel that there is a greater work for him to do than to repeat again and again the same sermons to the people. I have been instructed to refer our people to the 58th chapter of Isaiah. Read this chapter carefully and understand the kind of ministry that will bring life into the church. Now, Isaiah chapter 58, if you follow the book of Isaiah chapter 58 and you read it carefully and understand, you will get to understand what will bring life, what will bring people into God's church. And God's church is not the building. What will bring people into the commandment and the love of Jesus Christ. That is what she's saying right here. All right, it says here, the work of the gospel is to be carried by means of our liberality as well as by our labors. When you meet suffering souls who need help, give it to them. When you find those who are hungry, feed them. In doing this, you will be working in lines of Christ's ministry. This is what Christ did. When Christ may meet people on the side of the road in the street, he never scorned them and condemned them. And I'm not being disrespectful. This is what majority of church people, those who claim to be Christian, this is what they do in church. They treat people like dog. They scorn people and look down upon people. And they skin out their face upon you and look down upon you like you have poo-poo all over your face, and they treat you as if that you're worse than a dog. You know, you're worse than a, what the word for you is? You understand me? Than the germs. They treat you worse than a germ. And then the way they treat people, like poo-poo, dog poo-poo, they expect people to stay inside the church. No. When people realize you don't have no respect, no love, no compassion, they walk away from you. And that's the reason why a lot of people walk away from the churches and them never to return and step foot in a church. And some, it destroy them forever. They never had nothing to do with God again. You know why? Because of people like you who may not treat them like dog poo-poo in the first place because you think you're better than them because you have more than them. And people like you who behave that will listen to me carefully. If y'all don't repent, y'all can never see the face of God. No matter how much church I go every week, how much clothes and jacket and tie that I have I wear, no matter how much Bible that I walk with, how much verses that I repeat, how much head knowledge when it comes to the Bible that I have. If there is no charity, no love, no liberality found among you, straight to hell idea go, because guess what? Your gospel means nothing because you never have no power. That is what people don't understand. Now let's continue read. It says here, I'm going to read it again. The work of the gospel is to be carried by means of our liberality as well as by our labors. When you meet suffering souls who need help, give it to them. When you find those who are hungry, feed them. In doing this, you will be working in lines of Christ's ministry. It is not the duty of conference officers to lay restraining hands on the work being done in our cities. by the strange forbiddings that have been exercised in some places. Satan has been seeking to hedge up the way of the truth. The people need no encouragement to inactivity. Alright, people? So I just want you guys to understand and know that it is more than just going to church. It is more than just wearing the most expensive and the nicest outfit. It is more than just singing and dancing and doing all them someday. You can do all these things. Paul says in the book of 1 Corinthians, if you have not charity, your prophesying means nothing. You can speak in tongues, that don't mean nothing. You can have prophecy from now till thy kingdom come. I just put on my own word. That don't mean nothing. You can sing all you want. You can do everything. Once there is a lack of love and charity and liberality, everything that you do will come to naught. Your church will come to naught. Your preaching will come to naught, because it is love. That the whole entire law and the commandment of God, it is hung on love. Love for God and love for your fellow brethren. That love involves liberality, forgiveness, compassion, love to help people. If you don't have that love in you, you are not working for Christ. You will hear on the day of judgment, depart from me, ye workers of iniquity, for I never knew you to begin with. People like we that behave so are not going to the kingdom of heaven. Have a good day, brothers and sisters, and go and study the book of Isaiah chapter 58.